This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what have we got exciting that's coming up in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, for the last month it's all been leading up to this, and we're bringing you the final episode of Richard Freeman's Top 10 Most Plausible Cryptids, featuring the late Alan Freeman, who is no relation whatsoever.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of Hang On, what's that? We're being transported to Lewisham again! And there is something uncannily Haitian afoot. So there is.
Ken, what's going on in today's show?
Oh, Barry, we have former Haitian dictator Papa Doc Duvalier in the studio with us today, and he's going to be putting nail varnish on his nipples to make them nice and hard.
The Dirty Great Clown Toilet.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. My name's John Downs, and as the regular viewers will know, twice a week we bring you a mélange, a mixture, a mishmash, and all sorts of other things beginning with M. A martial law. No, that doesn't work.
Hey Lauren, what begins with M?
Microplasm, of course.
I can work with that. Thank you, Lauren.
Of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality, you may ask? Well, let's go and ask him.
I don't care what surreality is. It's probably some nonsense thought up by Computer Boy.
Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that I am a little bit hors de combat at the moment. I've got my arm in a sling, and that is because last Friday I had an operation for my carpal tunnel syndrome on my left hand. Already I can actually move my fingers better than I could, and I very much hope that this means I'm going to be able to play the guitar again, because I miss playing the guitar. But nobody warned me quite how painful it was going to be, and last Saturday, the day after the operation, I was in agony, and I gulped down handfuls of whatever I could find in the house to help kill the pain. And so I spent the weekend recovering, and it's getting better now. I mean, it doesn't hurt much more than my hands always hurt now, and it's much easier to keep my arm in a sling. It's much easier to rest it and not have it in danger of getting further unpleasant pains. But it's not very nice, and it is fairly restricting what I'm able to do at the moment, and that, as anybody will tell you, is not a very nice experience.
But enough of my woes and my trials and my tribulations. Let's go back to the one and only, the late Alan Freeman.
Greetings, pop diggers. Here's the top 10 cryptids that Rich thinks will be proven as real. At number 10, the giant anaconda. In with a bullet at number 9, the pig-headed duck. And at number 8, the Iriomoti mystery cats of Japan. Not half, mate. Following up closely at number 7, it's the Tibetan Yeti. Howling in at number 6, it's the Japanese wolf. At 5, it's Homo floresiensis, mate. We know a few of them, don't we, Ducky? Wriggling into the 4 spot, it's the Mongolian deathworm, and writhing in at number 3, we have various sea serpents. Then waddling into the number 2 spot, it's the Orang pendek, mate. And this week's top tip at number 1, it's the thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian wolf, mate. Not our.
Number 1 of all the cryptids that I think is most likely to exist is the Tasmanian wolf, or thylacine, the dog-like striped marsupial from Tasmania and formerly also from New Guinea and mainland Australia. A fantastic example of convergent evolution where two entirely different unrelated species of animal evolved to resemble each other because they're fulfilling the same ecological niche, oftentimes on opposite sides of the world. Now, officially, it was hunted into extinction in the 1930s, the last one dying in Beaumaris Zoo. But since then, there have been over 4,000 sightings, and there's been one by a zoologist, a well-respected zoologist called Hans Narding. And these sightings are so consistent year after year. There's a lot of iconic extinct animals like the dodo and Stella's sea cow and the passenger pigeon and the great auk, but nobody reports seeing these animals because they're extinct. But the Tasmanian wolf is reported consistently year in, year out, and I think the places to look for it are the Franklin Gordon Wilderness in Tasmania and the mountain forests of New Guinea.
You've been to Tasmania looking for it, haven't you?
Yes, 3 times. And I want to go back again, and I want to go to New Guinea looking for it as well.
What did you find when you were in Tasmania?
A lot of witnesses. I talked to one retired elderly gentleman who's since sadly passed away, but in the 1970s he was working at a hydroelectric scheme, and he was on his way to work with I think 5 other people in the car, and one of these things walked out in front of the car in the road in front of him, and they slowed down and all the people in the car got a good look at it, and he said it was absolutely magnificent. There's no mistaking it for any other animal. It was a thylacine. Another guy was a chap that ran an arboretum, and he said he'd been driving between Launceston and Hobart, and there was one of these creatures running along the side of the road looking to get under a barbed wire fence, and another car full of people behind him and his wife stopped and saw it as well, and there was a report subsequently in the paper afterwards. We talked to loggers that had seen it. There was a guy who was a government licensed shooter, and he went out culling the feral cats, and he had seen it twice. It's even been its continued existence has even been predicted by a computer program. Professor Henry Nix wrote a computer program called BioClim that matches up animals and environments. So the computer program, you put in all that you know about a target species and all that you know about a geographical area, and it will match the two up and say where within this area, predict where within this area the animal is most likely to be found. And he did that with the data from thylacine reports in Tasmania, and he found that there was something like a 98% match up with where the computer program was predicting it should be from its known preferences and what was known about the environment and where people were actually seeing it. So the computer program predicted it was going to be in the areas where it was being seen. Also, back in the days when we know it existed, the old bushmen and hunters who were familiar with it said that it smelled like a hyena. The other name for it was the hyena. There's a place called Hyena Hill that's named after the thylacine, because a lot of them had been in the Boer War in South Africa, and they knew what hyenas smelled like. I know what hyenas smelled like because I used to be a zookeeper, and there was one time in the wilds of Tasmania I was on a remote little path through the forest, and I got this smell exactly like a hyena, and it was as if something had walked just moments before across the path, and it lingered for a while and then the smell went. So of all the creatures, the Tasmanian wolf is the number one. We know it existed, and it existed fairly recently. We know that a computer program has predicted that it should still exist, and when you're talking about the interior of New Guinea, nothing would surprise me because it's one of the most unexplored places on the face of the earth.
Recently, mainstream scientists have claimed that the thylacine survived as recently as the beginning of the current century.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's still around now.
Even though Dr. Dan rubbished my idea back at the Weird Weekend that time, I still think that with technology coming on in leaps and bounds, it should be possible to have sniffer technology that can detect that smell, by getting it to sniff hyenas and find out what the hormone is that makes that smell. And do you think that's a good idea? That's a possible way of detecting thylacine.
I've not heard of that before, but yes. Yeah.
I came up with that idea in, what was it, Weird Weekend 2015, 16?
Yeah, that could be another way of looking for them. Environmental DNA would apply to all of the things on this list as well. eDNA.
Yeah. I personally think that New Guinea is the best bet.
It's so
I think they are in Australia because too many people have seen them, but I think New Guinea, I mean, you've got jungles, a lot of it's unexplored.
The mountain tribes there refer to it as Dobsonga, and they say it looks like a dog with stripes and it comes down from the mountains and kills livestock, but they won't hunt it because it's taboo.
Yeah. I don't think that they were responsible for taking sheep. I think that was bullshit. I don't think that they're really capable of taking down.
They're certainly capable of taking down a sheep. They're capable of taking down
big ones.
Yeah, they're capable of taking down a full-grown kangaroo or a wombat. They had a bite that was more powerful than that of a wolf, but their skull was constructed differently, so it wasn't as well adapted to hanging on to struggling prey as a wolf's is, because wolves hunt in packs and they worry and harry their prey and hang on to it and tear at it and often start eating it before it's even dead. But the thylacine hunted alone, and it had a more powerful bite, but it seems to have bitten its prey and let go and let the prey bleed to death rather than hanging on and struggling with it.
So that was its modus, was it? Bite and bleed to death rather than...
Yeah, than hang on.
Rather than going for the throat and hanging on.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. We now know what the top 10 creatures that Richard thinks are most plausibly able to exist are. However, he also had what he calls some honourable mention.
Honourable mentions. Other things that I think exist, I want to look for, or I've already looked for. The Caspian tiger. a tiger of Central Asia that used to come as far west as Turkey. I've been over to Tajikistan twice on the trail of the gull, the Tajik wild man, and the Caspian tiger. And I've spoken to people that have seen the creature and seen it recently. When I was over there the first time, I spoke to a park warden, a park ranger, who had seen it a scant month before we had been there, and he had observed it for about 5 minutes before it saw him and ran off. We talked to hunters who had shot wild goats, and the tiger had come and grabbed their kill. We talked to farmers who had had livestock taken. We talked to mullahs at a mosque that fully accepted that these creatures were there, and they told us about all the people that had seen them. And we showed the witnesses pictures of tigers and leopards and snow leopards, and they always picked the tiger. And we went back there just last year to a different part of Tajikistan, and again in the mountains we got consistent stories of very recent sightings of Caspian tigers. So the Caspian tiger, I think, is still around. The next honourable mention, I think, is giant crocodiles. We're dealing with the saltwater crocodile and the Nile crocodile, both of which get considerably bigger than the textbooks say that they do. With the Nile crocodile, one was shot by a respected zoologist called Hans Besser, a German zoologist, on a river in Tanzania in 1903, and was measured at 26 feet, but it had 3 feet of its tail missing, presumably bitten off by another crocodile when it was smaller, so it would have been 28 feet in life. In the Congo, there are stories of gigantic crocodiles far, far bigger than anything known to science that the natives speak of. In Asia and northern Australia, with the saltwater crocodile, we get these immensely big individuals. The largest one measured by an expert was 28 feet 4 inches, but there are stories of bigger ones upwards of 30 feet. One along one of the rivers in New Guinea is considered a god by the local people. It lives in a lagoon, and they say it protects them. And what's probably happening, it says a big bull crocodile that's keeping all the other male crocodiles away, and that's why they think it's protecting them. Gordon Buchanan, the wildlife cameraman, went to look for it. He didn't see it, but he saw the slide marks of this thing going down into the water that looked like the width of a car. The Philippines, there's a monster crocodile called Potol, which is supposed to be about 30 feet long, in Agusan Marsh, which is a man-eater. And where they're found, they're either feared as man-eating monsters or they're venerated as deities. And you could do a whole series going through parts of Africa, Asia, Australasia, New Guinea, looking for these things, giant crocodiles. Just on giant crocodiles, you could do a whole series. The Ord River in Australia is supposed to be home to a giant one as well, and it would make a cracking TV series.
Next.
British big cats, not really cryptids, more out of place animals, and you can't deny these because we've caught them. A puma was caught in 1980 in Inverness in a cage trap, and she was named Felicity and lived quite happily the rest of her life in the Highland Wildlife Park. Jungle cats, which are a lynx-like cat from the Middle East and parts of Asia, have been killed on roads or captured or shot. Lynx have been captured in Britain. We've had kills where bite marks have been identified as those of big cats. We've had tracks, we've had film, we've had hair. How much more proof do you need? We've actually caught the damn things, so we know they're there. The only question is how many of them are there and to what extent are they breeding.
You've seen one, haven't you?
Yes, I saw one on the outskirts of Exeter in broad daylight from a coach as I was travelling to see some friends in Bristol. I happened to look out of the coach window, and in a field was a full-grown puma. Brown, long legs, rounded head, rounded ears, long tail that was slightly thicker towards the end. I only saw it for about 6 seconds, but I recognised exactly what it was when I was seeing it. And it was just standing still in the field. It was obviously a puma. And of course we've seen the kill not far from here in Wolseley. We examined a ram that had been killed on a farm. Its neck bones had been dislocated. The skin had been peeled back from it like you were peeling the skin off a kipper or a banana, and then it had been picked very neatly clean, all the meat and the organs gone, but the bones not crunched up in the way that a dog would do it.
What do you think of the latest allegations that the notorious Devil's Footprints of 1851 were actually a big cat?
No. There may have been the odd big cat around that escaped from travelling menageries in Victorian times. I mean, I have a theory that the girt dog of Ennerdale, which was a creature that was preying on sheep in 1816 in the north of England, that may have been a thylacine that escaped from a travelling menagerie, or possibly a striped hyena. It's hard to tell from this distance in time, but the devil's hoofprints, they went up vertical walls and across roofs and stuff, and a big cat could leap upon a roof, but it wouldn't climb up a wall like Spider-Man leaving prints on a vertical wall. There was a record of something being seen in Canada that looked very like the famous devil's hoofprints, and it was something to do with a weird wind phenomenon that was making these odd horseshoe-shaped marks in the snow, which may have been the same phenomenon that was in Devon.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says,
Don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
They might be thinking about visiting the south. Well, there's things you need to know. The south might seem quaint, but remember, in the south, they drink shandy, they keep cats, they vote Tory, they go to focus groups, they go to wine bars. They're as soft as shite. So if you visit the south, remember, think once, think twice, think soft as shite.
That was a public information film.
And that is about all I have for you this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully by the next time you see me, my stitches will be out and I'll be able to wave my arms around like a young gazelle gambolling in a field. But if not, and I'm still the same clumsy old so-and-so that you all know and love, well, that's just the way it's going to be, isn't it? I want to say a big thank you to the people but for whom this episode couldn't have been made. Richard Freeman, V. McCrinnan, and the late and lamented Alan Freeman, no relation. I also want to say a big thank you to my producer Louis, who is still playing at being a colonial, gallivanting around the place in a white suit dressed up like Mark Twain. And I want to say a big thank you to Graham Inglis, the Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, who is also my carer. That means he's the guy who gets me up in the morning, puts me to bed at night, makes sure that I take the right medicine at the right time, which is something I am often forgetting to do, and pushes my wheelchair and takes me to hospital for all the various operations and other treatments that I have to have. And while we're at it, I want to say a big thank you to the NHS, who've always been absolutely smashing to me, and they were always absolutely smashing to Karina when she was so badly ill, and to Mother when she was ill. And I want to say a big thank you to the Assistant Director of the CFZ, the lovely Gwyn Palmer. She's not very well at the moment, which means she's not been able to get out to several of the out and about things that I had planned. But never mind, she does wonderful stuff behind the scenes, and I'm sure she'll be well enough to go out and greet the dawn laughing and waving her arms about very soon. So, what have we got for you next? The truth is, I don't know. Because I've now just about run out of stuff that I am going to edit. But I have various interviews coming up. I have various other smaller shows coming up. So the one thing I can guarantee is I will be there on Wednesday. And Mr. McCrinnan, if you're listening, Mr. McCrinnan, are you going to be watching, Mr. McCrinnan? Because I will be back on Saturday, even though at this stage I don't know what I'm going to be talking about. And if I'm there doing all the stuff that I do, the notifications and the updates and the live chat, and you, Mr. McCrinnan, are there watching it, then I most certainly will be seeing you.